Okay, please confirm if you can see now. Let me see. Should be looking at After Effects now. Okay. I need to adjust that. Let me see. Okay, this is the first time I'm doing it. It's proving more difficult than I expected it to be. Okay, almost there. Right, I think we're there now. Oh, great. I think we can start working now. So what I'm trying to do is, this is what my After Effects interface looks like. I won't necessarily be talking, but I just want to focus on the work and get it done. So if you have questions, just let me know in the live chats if you have questions. Yeah.
Average person spends 40%. Did you know that the average person spends 40? Did you know that the average person spends 40% of their income on housing alone? Now imagine cutting that expense by just 10%. You could save thousands each year, but it doesn't stop there. By investing just
Okay, so one thing you must know is that After Effects is not optimized for audio, so it won't necessarily be able to play audio as Premiere would play it. Yeah. So let's just see if I can work now. For you to be able to hear well, let me see if I can. This is what the audio looks like. So I'll just send everything into one composition and name it audio. So in that case, I can increase the volume of the audio so you guys hear better.
Did you know that the average person spends 40% of their income on housing alone?
Alright, so I have an idea. There are two ways I can choose to do this. I can either choose using icons and animation. Yeah, using icons and animation, or just make use of 2D characters, not necessarily icons in this case. Yeah, I can just make use of 2D characters that are not necessarily icons. Yeah. So, sorry, hold on. Screen capture. I don't know if I should work like people are watching me or just work and just wait till if you guys have questions, then you can ask me. Okay, so yeah, let's move forward.
Person.
So I was saying I have two ways to do this: either using icons, which I do not want to do for now, or using animating with 2D characters. And I've been able to get a 2D character. Yeah, I was able to get a 2D character, and that's what I want to make use of now. So the script was generated by myself. I want to deal with numbers and a lot of graphs and animation, so that's why I'm doing it this way. Now, the first thing I want to do is create my background. Now, what I will do is simple. I already have what I want to create in mind. I've already created it before, but I don't want to. I just want to show you guys how I do. So the first thing I will do is create a solid. That's Control Y to create a white solid. Yeah, I want to use the white background here. Then the next thing I will do is create another solid. That's Control Y. I'll make it black this time around. Then, okay, and I will add the grid effects. Go to my effects controls panel, my effect and presets panel, or simply just use. I have a shortcut in case you are using FX console, but you can just come here and search for grid. Okay, so in that case, I will apply this generate grid, and what it's going to do is generate a grid on my. Let me see. Why is it not showing? This is what I have. Oh, it's white. The color of the grid is white, so it's in a white background. I'm just going to make the color of the grid black. Now it's on the black background, and I can bring out the white solid back. Okay, so this is looking quite small to me, so I'm just going to increase this, increase the width and the height till I think I am okay with what I want. I'm just leave it as say 80, 80. Then reduce the opacity of the grid. I don't need this to be too loud. Then let's say the border, I think 5 is okay. Okay, so let's say I drop the opacity to 15 again. I think this is okay. The next thing I want to do is create my brand color is blue. I like to use blue, not necessarily brand color, but for what I've been doing, I've been using blue. So create a blue solid. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to this is my ellipse tool, my shape tool, my rectangle tool, my ellipse tool. So once my ellipse tool is activated, I'll just double click on it and it will create this mask, like an ellipse mask around it. Okay, so I'll just move that down. I can increase it, move it down. Now in the case that I'm increasing any shape, I like to have this on. Okay, this will preserve the quality of the shape even if I'm increasing it. So I'll just feather it out. Okay, in that case now, since I'm having my edges here, I might have to bring it up again, then drop this down. Also drop this, then feather it, and of course I don't need it to be too loud. Reduce the opacity, so I just have that little bit of blue gradient at the bottom. Yeah, so I have not done this before. I think I just have an idea of what I want to do in mind. So I think 50 is good enough. So what I will do here now is I want this blue to just flicker. I don't want it to be stationary. I just want it to flicker, the opacity to flicker. So what I will do is I can just come here, take a go to my effects panel, then there's an animation preset that is called flicker, opacity flicker. So I'll just take it, opacity flicker in, then add it. In this case now it's going to be going from, what is it called? It's going to be going from 100. Okay, since animation, the opacity is going to be going from 100. So the original opacity I left it at before 50 would now be irrelevant. So what I will do is I will pre-compose this. So it's going to, when I pre-compose this, it's going to remain at 50. At 50, the opacity inside of my composition will remain at 50. Then I'll move all attributes into new composition and click on OK. So now it's remaining as 50. So even if I add this, my 100 now, my 100 will now be 50. I don't know if you get what I mean. My 100 will not be 50. But even at that, this might be too...
The average person spends 40%.
This might be too abrupt, so I don't want to use this opacity flicker in. Let's see. I'm going to have to use expressions now. Let's see, expressions. For you to use the expressions, I don't know if you know what that means. Those that are watching here. For you to use the expressions, there are different expressions you will use, but the simple one I'm going to be using is my wiggle expression. So I'll just say wiggle. Then once I click on wiggle and enter, the first one is my frequency. Now if I have something like 1,10, the first number is my frequency, the next one is by how much I wanted to increase or reduce. So in this case, if I do 1,
did you know that the average person spent...
Let me make it let's say 50. Don't know if you can see it. So the frequency...
Did you know that the average person spends...
Every 1 second is going to be behaving that way. Okay, but I want to increase the frequency now. Not necessarily 1 second, but how fast it's going to be. Let me change it to terrain.
Did you know that the average person spends
40% of the...
Okay, so 50 for me is too much. I can just leave it at 10.
Did you know that the average person...
Let's see, just trying to look for what works.
Did you know that the average person spends...
person spends...
I don't know if you'll be able to see the difference, but I think I want to reduce this a little bit. feather it a little bit more. Even reduce the opacity still to say 30. Then I think this works for me. Then whatever.
Did you know that the
is
average
not
person
necessarily
spends
visible, but this is not necessary. I just need to have that blue, whatever here at the bottom. Now I didn't plan to just talk. I plan to just work, and this is going to take more time. So my idea is.
Did you know that the average person
Okay, my idea is, did you know? Now let's start with text animation. Did you know? For color sake, I'm just going to leave it like this for now. Say 250. Now when it comes to editing things like this, yeah, since you're trying to create something engaging, your movement, your animation it's going to matter a whole lot. Yeah, your movement, your animation is going to matter a whole lot. So what I want to do now is just find a way to make this did you know dynamic. But since I'm not sure I want to put question mark behind did you know here. So what I will do instead is let me create another text. Let's say 500 or even 1000. If 1000 won't be too much, let me leave it at 700. Then centralize the text. Then I'll move the text, that question mark, to the bottom of the did you know. Okay, then reduce the opacity. Not only opacity in this case, now I'm going to have an effect, add an effect, and say if I add Gaussian blur, just to blur it out a bit. Yeah, so that question mark is visible slightly visible. Okay, so this is what I have. Then how do I make this the question mark come in? I can just animate the scale. From say 0 to this. Then I'll work on the graph. Let's always.
Did you know that the
And working on the graph, this is what I have. Let me make it come in quickly. Then is
Did you know that the
okay, because of that I can increase the distance of this.
Did you know that the Did you know that the Did you know that the average
Or even make this even further.
Did you know that the average person Did you know that the average person
Okay, so for this did you know now, I think I have something in mind. I'm going to just duplicate this twice. 1, 2. For this did, I'll just mask this did out. Let me go back to my strict rectangle tool. Mask did out here. Mask you out here. Then mask no out here. Okay, I will have a rough idea of what I want to experiment. So having done that, I'm going to just centralize for each of the layer 1, 2, 3 here, centralize their anchor points. So I want both of them to come in from under. Okay, so the first did will be create a keyframe for position, move like this is 10 frames forward, then create another keyframe for position. Now the position I want it to be is where it already is at the second keyframe here. So I'm going to move here and take this one down. Okay, so ideally this is what.
Did you know that the
But the animation is looking a bit awkward. So I'm going to move forward. Let's say another 10 frames. Now let's deal with this other animation. Open, then this, then for this one, draw it down. So it's when did comes in that you're going to start coming in, that you can see from the position from where I'm creating the keyframe. So this is what it looks like basically.
Did you know that the average person
But I think that is going to be a bit slow. So instead of 10 frames, I'm just going to make it 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Then move this here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I think that will be faster.
Did you know that the average
Yeah, so let's work on the animation smoothness. and that's using your easy ease. How I did this is, if you're watching this, I probably guess that you know it already. So if you have ideas of what you want me to try, just let me know, please. So let's first deal with this. I want everything to come in the same way, actually. So I'm just going to do this. This is a basic graph editing, and turn on motion blur. My motion blur is at 180 degrees, so that's fair enough.
Did you know that the average Did you know that the average Did you know that the average per
Okay, let's try something else. That doesn't look the best to me, so I'm going to try another. I'm going to ease it in the opposite direction. So in that case, now what's going to happen is going to come in slowly, then towards the end, it's going to finish faster. I just keep trying to see what looks dynamic for me. Now what this means is that it's going to come in slowly here, then when it gets to this top, it's going to come down faster. Yeah, that's what the graph editor basically means. And then I have a course on After Effects. It's not necessarily animation, it's the whole of After Effects. So if you're interested, you can just let me know.
Did you know that the average Did you know that the average
I'm not even sure I like that. I'm not sure I like what it looks like with that. Now, if I do that, I think I would prefer the other one. But let's see. Let's just keep playing with it to see what works. Let me try with just the first one, then replicate the first one in the other ones. Now, of course, I won't, because I'm using just 5 frames interval.
Did you know that the
I won't have. Let me turn these guys off first. Then focus on just the first one. Now this is 10 frames.
Did you know that the average
I think what I have in mind is, let's see.
Did you know that the average Did you know that the Did you know that the average per
Okay, let's see what that looks like. Oh my god, I'm dealing with the wrong thing actually. I was dealing with scale instead of position here. My bad. Oh, my scale is still intact. Yeah? Okay, so let me see what it looks like.
Did you know that the average Did you know that the average
I think I like this already. So I'll just try and look for that center. Center of it is where I will put my peak points. Then this is how many frames? 1, 2, this is 2. I mean that's 20 frames. So moving this one here, 1, 2, 20 frames. But in this case, I think it's going to be slow. So I'll just start animating from 10 frames. Then this one also from 10 frames. So I'm just going to try to replicate the same graph that I had in the first one. So I think that would be a bit easy because I'm just working at leaving the peak towards the center. Yeah, I'm going to do that for this one also. I'm looking forward to learning from you guys. Or if you are knowledgeable in AE and there's something you want me to try that you think would work better, so can you just let me know? So let's see what it looks like now.
Did you know that the average person Did you know that the average person
Okay, that's slow actually. I think I'll just stick with 10. Then in this case, I'll move this to 5. This is what it's about basically, just trying to know what looks dynamic, to know what works best for you. So yeah, let's see.
Did you know that the average
I think I'll just leave it that way. If I make more progress.
Did you know that the average
Okay, so if I make more progress and I'm going through the overall editing, if I need to tweak anything, I'll just correct it from here. So I have an image now. I've been watching some videos and especially for editors that are not based in Nigeria. And I discovered that they use a lot of AI generated images. So I said, let me try that in this video. So I generated this image yesterday. I'm going to generate more as I carry on. I generated this image yesterday, and this is the kind of, otherwise I just have used icons. When I mean icons, yeah, that I can fill in their colors. So I just have used them for this kind of edit, but I want to try something different, yeah. So let's see. Okay.
Did you know that the average
So when it starts from average person, what I want to do is I want to move these guys into the frame, yeah, and I want to move did you know up. Okay, so in that case, let's say it's at this point I want that to happen. I create a marker here. It's at this point I want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a null object. Now this null object is going to be able to control all my did you know. Okay, so I'm going to create a position here, then move forward like that's 20 frames, yeah, and since I've connected all my did you know to the null object, you saw how I did that. Just select everything, then use your pick whip tool, your parent or pick whip tool to take it to the null object. And I'm going to just move this null object, I'm going to move it up. So once I do that, everything is going to move up, okay? So in that case, I'm going to just create now to my graph editor. I want this to come like this. I want it to start slowly.
know that the average person
Yeah, start slowly.
know that the average person
Rapidly go up. So in that case, since it's starting slowly, I now know that I have to move my keyframes forward.
you know that the average person
If that's a lot of forward.
know that the average person
Okay, so now these guys can come in, whether from the side or wherever I want it to come from. Let's try from the bottom also.
you know that the average
Of course, position animation again. I'm trying to not make things too complex here. Now, when I'm animating, any animation I'm doing, I used to try to make it, make sure. I can't put it in full because After Effects is going to.
you know that the average person 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 you know that the average person
So let's quickly see how we can make this a little bit dynamic.
you know that the average person
So one thing I try to do, as I said, is I try to make sure there's movement, whether vertically or horizontally. So these guys, yeah, I want to make sure they are moving, but I don't want to deal with the position again because I've already created like an animation on the position. So I like renaming my layer, so I'm going to call this let's say DYK null, then for main null. Okay, so what's going to happen now is I'm going to attach this file to these guys, yeah. Then I'm going to open position. I'm going to use an expression here, but I want them to be moving vertically, like upwards. So I'm going to separate my position, separate dimensions. So I click on separate dimensions. Now I'm going to now create an expression here. Let's say let's use just how much movement. I might need to change that later, but let's see what this looks like. You can see how they are moving, yeah? So let's watch what
Did you know that the average person Did you know that the average person spends 40 Did you know that the average person spends Did you know that the average person Did you know that the average person spends Did you know that the average person Did you know that the average person spends
Okay, so we can move on with that now.
Did you know that the average person spends
I think
Did you know that the average
since it's already moving, I want this to start faster.
You know that the average person You know that the average person spends Did you know that the average person spends
Okay, so we can
The average person spends 40%
40%.
Okay, there's a comment here. I feel it's too slow. When they say average Maybe try moving them at that point. What part? Let me know what part you're talking about, please. Is it the did you know or the guys? Let me know what part you're talking about, please.
Did you know that the average person spends Did you know that the average person
Okay.
Did you know that the average
Let me try. Let me just assume I know what part you're talking about. Then I'll move did you know also. So let's see.
Did you know that the average person Did you know that the average person Did you know that the average person spends
The moment they say average, you start moving in. Okay, I think I've done that. So let me know what you think about that now.
Did you know that the average person spends Did you know that the average person spends Did you know that the average person spends
Okay, so let's do.
Did you know that the average person spends
How do I do that?
Did you know that the average person spends that the average person spends 40%
Oh, thank you, thank you.
that the average person spends 40% average person spends 40% of their
40%.
average person spends 40% of their
40%.
Okay, hold on for me, please. I need to find my script so I can follow the script. Yeah, I just told GPT to generate something for me, and that was what I worked with. So I need to get my script. Okay, do you know that the average person spends 40% of their income on housing alone? So how do we do that? 40% of their income. Anybody got ideas? 40% of their income on housing alone. For housing, I can imagine I will need house PNG. I don't know if you can see this part of the screen. I don't need like fake house. Real house PNG. And if I don't get real house, okay, this looks good. Let me see. Okay. So you got ideas for this? Let me know, please. I need a good house that I can use. If I'm not getting PNG, I will just create the PNG myself. Let me see. Let me see if I will get one here. This is looking interesting. This looks like something I can use. I think it's something I can use actually. But the quality might just drop. How about this guy? Let me download to see what's up. Can't I download? I think this looks good to me actually. But it's not downloading. I guess I will just use this. Sorry, why is nothing downloading? I think there's a download in progress, that's why it's delaying. Anyways, so let's move forward to see what we can do with our.
Do you know that the average person spends 40% spends 40% of their income person spends 40% of their income person spends 40% of their income
After Effects, and it's 40% of their income on housing alone. So for income, let's assume that we need money to show some.
The average person spends 40%. The average person spends 40%. The average person spends 40% of person,
Yeah, the guys are moving. They're moving vertically. You think it's too, maybe it's not visible enough. It's not visible enough. They're actually moving vertically. There's an expression on them. Or maybe it's their frequency that is not.
spends 40% of their income.
Yeah, there's an expression on them actually.
Did you know that the average person spends? Did you know that the average person spends?
So I want to use money, and let's see where I can get money from. I have some. I have some money overlay here. Oh, okay, you can see now. So which one do we use? I have this. No. I have this. Okay, that's one. This is money explosion. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. I have this one of money just falling, so this is a lot of money here. But this is the one I use mostly. But the problem with this is that it's vertical. So which one do I think I can use? Okay, I think I'll make use of this. Why is blue coming to mind? I mean the color blue is coming to mind. I think I might want to bring that in somewhere. So this is the explosion of the money here is a bit slow. So let me just keep this for now. I might need to reduce this again.
Did you know that the average person spends? Did you know that the average person spends? Did you know that the average person spends?
Where I can download, kindly let me know. You can. I'm not on WhatsApp now. Maybe you can send it on WhatsApp if you have a site I can download. But these ones I have are from.
Did you know that the average person spends? Average person spends 40% of.
Okay, so one thing I want to try is spend 40%. I want to see if I can move this guy. Did you know? Out, right? Move these guys to the right, then move the house, and maybe 40% of money or something. Let us see what you can make work.
That the average person spends.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense actually.
Did you know that the average person spends?
So I want to move this guy's. We'll still do quite a lot of movements here. We should do quite a number of movements. I'm intentionally dealing with my script. I made them have a lot of numbers. So I will have to
Person
do
spends 40%. Know that the average person spends 40. Person. Average person spends 40%. Person spends.
Okay, so we have this. This is off. Now this is coming from the bottom. I don't know what it will look like if I make it come from the side. If I make it come from the side, then I will have to scale it up a bunch so it fits in the screen, which I'm not sure I am a fan of. That's why I don't have so many money assets. Let's say Killer. I thank God I have someone I'm working with here. We are literally editing the video together. Who's the person? Mysterio MC1. Great. Okay, so the movement is too fast. So let me increase this. Or
Average person. Did you know that the average person spends? Average person.
no.
Average person spends 40% of their. Average person spends 40% of. Average
I see
person
you, I
spends
see you.
40%. Average person spends 40% of.
Even my money animation is too slow, so let's see if we can increase. by 50.
Spends 40%.
I think it's still giving too slow. Time stretch. Let's say 30.
Person spends 40% of the person spends 40% of their spends 40% spends 40%.
When you say move to the right, do you mean rotate or just move to the right? As in this kind of movement. Then based on my kind of animation, I think since I'm using, I think I said I'm a fan of blue, so I want to see if I can synth it a little bit with blue. Let me try and get this exact blue I'm working with. Okay, I have it here already. Let me see if I can change my money a little bit. Since that rotating from the side here, just synth it a little bit. Let's do this. That rotating from the side, you saw my problem with it, because now if it's leaving, then it will be cutting at the edge here, except I now mask it, which is also an option, and mask it and feather it a lot. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that.
Spends 40% of their spends 40% of their
What do you think? What do you think? I'm not sure I'm a fan of that.
Spends 40% of their.
So let's just remove the mask for now and rotate it to 0. Then if better, what's it called? If there's a better money asset, then that would do just fine. But then you can just move this actually. Then, as you said, move it to the bottom of access the background.
Person spends 40% of their person spends 40% of their person spends 40% of their person spends 40.
What I usually prefer is have everything figured out.
Spends 40%. Person spends 40% of their
But then one can always do that. Let's not deceive ourselves. So one can always do that, especially if you are pressed for time.
Person spends 40% of their person spends 40.
Okay, so if you had another money asset, that would be fine. But does it have to be a video? Can't it be like a PNG, like a money stack or something? Let's try. Dollar stack PNG. I have something in mind. Let's see if it will work. Let's try this to see if it will work. In case we don't find a good money animation over. There's a lot that I have seen from quite a number of editors that I have looked for that I have not found. Let's see this. And if this is 12, oh my god. I'm not interested now. So, are you an After Effects person? That's Mr. You. Do you use After Effects often? And what kind of videos do you edit most? Let's be fast with my download now. And this guy is not downloading. I really don't know what's up. Maybe something wrong with my Chrome. And if I go over again, you see, continue downloading. I wasn't downloading anything. So my streaming has not stopped. I don't know how long this is supposed to last, but let's just try and keep going. Oh, just Premiere. This is 5 S3. When people say have it all planned out, good. Have it all planned out, have it all figured out before you get into the Disney software. That's storyboarding. Sometimes one will not have time to do all of that. Let's be honest with ourselves. Sometimes you will not have time. Since this is not working, let me see what we can do with this money stack. Since so
Each person spends 40% of their income. Person spends
this might actually do better. So let's see.
Each person spends spends 40%.
Let this one just come from outside.
Person spends 40% of their spends 40% of their income. Spends 40%.
Right, storyboarding helps. There's sometimes that some very crazy jobs that we have seen that one has to do up to 3 short editing per day. Now, how many minutes do you, or how long do you want to use the storyboard?
Spends 40%.
Like sometimes
Spends 40%.
it sounds good, especially, but for single motion graphics to work, for single jobs, I
Person
usually get that
spends
done.
40%.
But in the case you're editing about 10
Person
minutes
spends 40%
of footage, what do they expect you to do? Like, does that make sense? In case you're editing about 10 minutes of footage, now this is just how many seconds? This is about 20 seconds. And look at where we are.
Spends 40%.
Okay, so for my 40%, for this one, for this money, okay, I don't like the way it's blurry, so I'm just going to try to do something like what works. I want to give it a little bit of, it's not shadow I have in mind. A little bit of highlight. So if I can, what do I do? Control duplicate, then add a fill, then my blue, and I'll see if I can just increase the scale a little, or say 18.5. Just give it a little bit of, yeah.
Person spends 40%.
So now
Person
40%, I will do that.
Person spends 40%. Person spends 40% of. Person spends 40.
Okay, 40%. Let's see. I have a font in mind. 40%. Where am I? Handwritten fonts. Does this work? 400, 300. Let me look for other ones that are. Okay, let's try this. But this time around, I also want to use blue.
Average person spends 4. Average person spends 40%.
Now, what I have in mind is to make this 40 and written. Okay, I'll check it out.
Average person spends 40%.
I would love to make this handwritten, but then it's going to take a lot of time. I'm just going to leave it this way.
person spends 40% of their
40%.
spends four.
Okay, but I have something in mind. I'm going to import that. Is one, no, so search for skull. Once I search for skull, and now I'll find it. It's a pack I have. I can't even remember. This is circle. Yeah. So instead of dropping it first, I'm just going to interpret footage main, loop it. And you that said you edit in Premiere. Like, do you do this kind of thing in Premiere? There's sometimes you people that do something like this in Premiere. I've seen someone do it. I watched a video before coming live, and I was really impressed at how much can be done in Premiere. I mean, I started learning After Effects first there, and any little thing I have to do, that maybe any animation of any sorts, yeah, I just make sure I just bring it into. I don't even waste time. I just bring it into. We will call it lazy work, but for me, I'm after speed.
Spends 40% of their income.
Okay, so I have this, but there's something I think I want to do. Now I don't want my screen. You can do them on Premiere. That's honestly crazy. Like, people that can do this on Premiere, I really respect you guys. I really respect you guys. Like, this is not why, this is not capping.
Spends 40% of their
So I don't want
spends 40%.
40%. I will amplify it. Do I want? I'm not sure I have that much luxury of that much.
Spends 40% of their income. Spends 40.
But let me just see. But one thing I have in mind is to add this.
Spends 40% of. Spends 40%.
Add this to my portfolio for, I think it's VSL editing or something, where there is no, you just record voiceover and give it to you.
Spends 40% of their.
Yeah, I want to just see how I can link. Oh, instead of that, I think I'll just do this. So indicate that linking. I'll just link this here. And let's see if I do it this long, will it make sense? Link to 40, then link to money. But in that case, now it's looking like I might have to. Looking like I might have to drop the height of these guys a little bit. Where are they? This is file. Just drop the height a little bit.
Person spends 40%. Person spends.
In that case, I'll need to drop the height of the money too. Sorry. Now I have my money together. The best way for me to do it is create create a null object and link all of them together. So I'll just use the null object to move it down. So that's not important. Like so what I'm trying to do is just link the guys to the money, then the guys to the 40%, then 40% to the money. Doesn't have to be perfect in that sense. In case it's choked, to say this, say leave it at 15. 15 is a bit much. let's say 12, and after 12, there's some things, you know, you just say you can do it in Premiere. There's some things that I can't just. I think doing it inside of Premiere, your options will be kind of limited. I don't know, but I feel so. Or maybe it's my lack of knowledge of being able to get this done in Premiere. Yeah, I just feel your options will be kind of limited. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Like this, what's it called now? This dash that I'm adding to my stroke. I'm not sure it's something one can get done in Premiere.
Spends
Correct me if I'm
40%.
wrong.
Spends 40% of their. Spends 4
Okay, so we have what
person spends 40. Person spend.
Spends. So what I'm going to do now is add a trim part. Then I'll just see if how I can animate it from starts. What does happen? Software crashing. To finish. Let me assume that by 7
Spends 40% of. Spends 40%.
Okay.
Spends 40% of their income on. Spends 40% of their.
Oh.
Spends 40% of their income.
Okay, so I'm having two static shots here. So let's try and animate and just give it a little bit of dynamic movement. So for this one, it's attached to null theory. So this is null theory, and just going to give it some. Especially, there's some things I just think that. Okay, that's a lot of movements. Will be easier done in After Effects. Yeah.
Spends 40% of their income. 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 Spends 40% of their income.
Okay, so let's assume we are done with this. And I have to go and look for my script again. The expressions is based on frequent use. And you know what? I don't even waste my time sometimes. Thank God for GPT, yeah? I just come and type in, oh, I need to do this, give me an expression to do this, and it just gives me what to do. Like since I started using GPT. So where's my script? On housing alone. Now, imagine cutting the expense by just 10%. Okay.
You know that the average person spends 40. Person spends 40. Person spends 40. Person spends 40% of their income. 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 40% of their income on housing alone.
Okay.
Their income on housing alone. Their income on housing alone. Percent of their income on. Percent of their income on housing alone. Percent of their income on.
Okay, on housing alone. Did we download any house that time? I'm not sure. Yeah, what I want to do now is try to. Now, when I get for housing alone, I want to see if I can blur out every other part, then make the housing dominant. Someone said I should do something that time. Said I should clear my card. Let me try this. Put on my help. I think this is looking good. Okay, I have 14 minutes more before the stream ends. Please subscribe here. This is the first time I am doing has happened again, yeah? Yes, it has happened again. Why is this thing stressing me? So, I think that Pinterest I'm trying to. That Pinterest I'm trying to open is not helping. Let me just. I'll probably clear the cart as that person advised later, yeah? I'm going to try to finish this today, and once I'm done, I'll send it to the group. So what was going on with your head? I start looking for this.
Spends 40% of their income on.
Okay, so when it gets to announcing alone, I want to see if I can blow out every other scene and leave the house scene at the top. So to do that, what is coming to mind is, aside the background, this is the background. Let me just lock all of these layers. I'm going to I have to pre-compose all of this. Let me call it phase 1. Pre-compose all of this. Then I shouldn't have done that yet. Let me just add the control Y for adjustment layer. Then add the camera lens blur. You know what I'm trying to do?
Spends 40%. Spends 40% of their income on. 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 Spends 40% of their. Spends 40% of their in. Spends 40% of their income on.
So when it gets to on, that's where I want the animation to come in. Just a quick one. So I just want to go from 0 to. But the way it is now, because my adjustment layer on top of everything,
Of their income on.
even background is going to go.
Of their income on. Of their income on. Income on. Income on house.
Okay. I don't think I actually need to remove the background. I don't think I actually need to recompose this. Let me just bring in the house. Then 11 minutes more. Thank you guys for joining. Did I mention subscribe and like? Nobody has liked. Oh my god. Maybe the blur is actually much, but then let's see. Remove this. Oh, I have 5 likes. Thank you. Oh, my way I'm watching it from is not refreshed. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Income on housing alone.
Now, what something is coming to mind? There's this effect I used to see somewhere. What I did with the null object and the movement that I was able to give this guy and this guy. There's a kind of movement that it's not moving smoothly. It's more like changing position. It's not smooth. Position change is not smooth. The blur is too much. Okay, the position change is not smooth. Just like moving from one point to another. I don't know if I will have to.
Income on housing alone.
I don't like that. What is it called? Yeah, I like this. I don't know if I have to do it myself, but I've tried that kind of. Trying setting for that kind of effect in with
Income on housing alone. Income on housing alone. Income on housing alone.
Let me see if I can prompt GPT to give me something like that. well, this thing I'm looking for, polarized time effect. I thought of that, yeah. Let me see if this will help. I see it a lot in CapCut. I see it a lot in CapCut, so I want to see if it's something I can do on this end. Position. Let me work with non-objects. If it won't give me L, let's see. Expression L. I think I'll just use what you said I should use. So that's going to take time.
And on housing on
So at this position, then let's say 5 frames forward. Another 5 frames forward. That will not be too much movement. But let me try.
on housing alone on housing alone on housing alone. Now imagine on housing alone. Now on housing alone. Now imagine on housing alone. Now
This is not what I'm trying to achieve. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? I don't know. I've seen it in some places before. Okay, since set 2 keyframes for the position property on your timeline where you want to jump to. Okay, let's try that. From here to here. Then I'll click. Let's see. Yes, can you imagine?
on housing alone. Now imagine on housing alone.
It actually did work. Can you imagine? This is what I'm looking for. Like, where I don't want the movement to go from. I don't want it to move like it's moving at once. I want it to like jump.
On housing alone.
So to be jumping from one place
on housing alone.
to another. I don't know if you've seen what it is I'm talking about here. Okay, so it says set on my keyframes.
On housing.
This is 1. Let me just leave it 5 frames each. 5 frames. Oh. Okay, I want it to move too much.
On housing alone. Now imagine on housing alone. Now
I'm done the mad one. So it's not the plan. Let me copy this.
on housing alone. Now imagine on housing alone.
Okay, now it's doing only 2 keyframes. I will have to check this out and see how I will have to learn that actually. But the fact that I see that now that it's possible, that makes a lot of sense. The fact that I see that it's possible.
On housing alone. Now on housing alone.
The way it's jumping from one place to another, that's what I'm trying to achieve. Let me see this. Set all your keyframes on the position property as per time you want. This is supposed to work actually. Okay. That has
on
worked.
housing alone. Now imagine
That has worked, but the speed is sort of too much for me, so I'm just going to try and increase the speed.
on housing alone. Now imagine
Okay, I think I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. You see, isn't there an isn't certain called old keyframe? Yes, there is. Toggle old keyframe, yes. There is. This actually would have worked still. The old keyframe stuff would have worked still.
on housing alone. Now
Maybe
on housing alone. Did you know that the average person spends Did you know that the average person spends
Is that available in Premiere too?
Did you know that the average person spends
Spends 40 on housing alone.
Speaking of expressions, that's how I work with expression, but the ones I use repeatedly that I don't have to go and browse on how to use it here. Like this ones, I already have them in my head.
Did you know that the average person spends
Person spends 40% of their income on
spends 40% of their income on
This, what is it called? This mark, I think this is the last one I'm going to do before I end the stream. This line, I'm not a fan of it being stationary. So what can I do? Let me see if I can use some of these crazy effects. I do not know the name of the one I have in mind now. Let me just browse the effects panel. Something that has to do with distort. Oh, Premiere has it. Yeah, AE has it also. Thank you. Top line displacement, yeah. It's going to displace it to a whole lot, but I don't want so much. I just need something that will give it a little bit of movement. So if I do wiggle 2,10, yeah, instead of it being stationary, doesn't there something that will do with a little bit of movement? I think that works actually.
spends 40% of their income on
Okay, maybe it's let's look at 40 here.
spends 40%
Yeah, double X
spends
is,
40% of their income on
if you're a Film Riot fan, one should never forget that if you're a Film Riot fan.
40% of
You
their
know what I mean, yeah?
spends 40% of their income
Yeah, I think I'm going to stop here for now. Then I'll continue later tonight and send the full video on our WhatsApp page. To make the line move, I can just constantly offset it. Once I use offset, the lines are going to keep moving. Let me see what direction is better. Okay, so if I go from here to negative, what's that movement going to be like?
spends 40% of their income on
It would be nice if you could learn AU.
spends 40% of their income on
Okay, so actually this is where I'm going to stop. So I'll just continue and see what I can do. Yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for actively engaging Mr. Like, really appreciate it. Yeah, what is motivating this is I've been on Twitter a lot, and what Twitter has shown me, the number of good people that are present on Twitter and the kind of work they do, there are things I can do, but they end up being able to get better clients and earn a whole lot. Yeah, so that's something that's motivating me. I need to put my work out there. This should serve as my portfolio. I don't know, but I feel like you get a lot of good clients, especially for this kind of editing, long form, short form editing that has to do with a lot of engagement. Get a lot of them on Twitter. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to push Twitter. I'm going to generate voiceovers for things that I want and edit them in Premiere, After Effects. You can tell that once I'm done with this now, kind of sound design that I will have to do in Premiere, that one is also important. So yeah, I think I can end this stream here. Thank you. I hope you have subscribed. I hope you have liked. And if you end up watching this in future, going forward, I will not be talking. I will just be editing. And if you have questions, you can ask. So I think that will be all from me. Yeah. See you in the next live stream.